And now the blue. And I have to tell you that this is a real beauty. As always, the details will be the same, but the paint application is different, completely different. Now let's start at the head. Again, notice the very wonderful detail you already get in the face. We have the same features, of course, like the nasal soft tissue, the throat pouch, and those keratinous spines. Sadly too, of course, that cut-in remphatheca. Going down again, that detail down the neck, but even more, the beginnings of that wonderful coloration. And from the top, you'll see a highlight of a kind of ochre, and this is something that Haolongood often gives its sauropods, which I really like, adding an extra dimension of visual interest. If you thought that the flowery patterned versions of the Argentinosaurus was complex, this blue variant of the Brachiosaurus cranks it up a few notches. There are relatively fewer hues, but so many tones of color here. The color mixes seem to be various permutations of blue, grey, whites. I can't even describe it adequately. As we move down, you'll see and appreciate the kind of color complexity you can expect in the rest of the body. And down the arm. There are more tints of white, and the effect is a very flowery show. I dare say there aren't as many different hues as in the Haolongood brown Argentinosaurus, but it's the different tones and shades of what's there that really enhances the effect. Very different style from the Argentinosaurus, which is really great. For something that's an investment of money and space, you don't want derivative colors and patterns. Now, what an easy task it is to hold this compared to the Argentinosaurus. Interestingly, these purplish mottles are done in such a way that they look like stripes going across. Very nice indeed. Again, I really like the dark feet. In a blue, I like how these marks gradually elongate and then encircle the tail. A no highlighted tail, which is frankly quite refreshing. The alarming white stripes suggest a display or signaling function. So that's it for the blue. By now, I'm sure most people know about the Brachiosaurus-Giraffatitan separation. The history is fascinating. I'll reference a couple of articles you can read, including the original proposal in Paul's 1988 paper. There are several obscure anatomical details that won't be visible externally, but let's focus on what we can actually see in our models. First, Brachiosaurus is generally more robust, and Giraffatitan relatively more gracile. You can just remember B for Brachiosaurus and bruiser, and G for Giraffatitan and gracile. Now, based on these skeletals by Dr. Scott Hartman, we have these fleshed out dinosaurs by Nicholas Carter, which is easier to appreciate. Giraffatitan has a higher shoulder position than Brachiosaurus, resulting in a steeper slope of the back. And partly because of this, Giraffatitan is more compact, while Brachiosaurus has a relatively longer torso. Then finally, the tail is relatively longer in Brachiosaurus. That brings us to the comparisons. And this time, I'll actually compare this to the W Dragon Giraffatitan first. First, this Giraffatitan adopts a very upright pose that in recent years has fallen out of favor. You see here Dr. Scott Hartman's newer interpretation. Still, I'll say the obvious differences are there, not so much in terms of the Brachiosaurus's overall robustness, but more the gracile nature of the Giraffatitan, particularly in the neck. We have the steeper slope of the back from the higher position of the shoulder girdle, and the longer torso of the Brach compared to the more compact one of the Giraffa. And finally, the longer tail here. It would be really interesting to see Haolongood render its own Giraffatitan in the future, but for now, just having these two in roughly the same scale is highly satisfying for me. Now let's compare them to each other. First, the green is interesting as it's actually more, as we've seen, green stripes on a generally whiter body, the negative of what you'd expect. Now under some lighting, it does look like it has a very dark face, which for me throws off the aesthetics a bit. Of course, in real life, animals aren't coloured to my aesthetic preferences. In contrast, the blue is more balanced in terms of how the colour in different areas tie together. The complexity is wonderful, as per Haolongood's usual, but at the same time a bit flowery, reminding me a bit of what Billy Graham used to wear. Probably half of you are too young to know who I mean. Still, I really wish they had a plain variant, as with past sauropods, to cater to different tastes. As it is, you're likely to like all of them or none of them. Then here's the Nanmu Watchman walking Brachiosaurus. Now I think you'll see in terms of the texture that this harkens back to a much earlier sculpting aesthetic. I still like it as a reminder of that jaw-dropping moment in Jurassic Park, but in terms of what's more scientific, the Haolongood has it. And finally, just for nostalgia, a quick look at the Carnegie Brachiosaurus. Even though it's smaller, it just looks like it has more heft simply because of how robust and thick it is in general, compared to present-day interpretations of these magnificent animals. We'll close out the Macronarians with some titanosaurs. Here's the Haolongood Alamosaurus. Perhaps surprisingly, when we saw this image, it seemed like the Brachiosaurus looked comparable and even a bit larger. This is, I think, best seen from above, with a longer torso in Brachiosaurus plus about equal girth, resulting in a more voluminous animal. Then we have last year's finale, the Haolongood Argentinosaurus. As big as Brachiosaurus is, we see that Argentinosaurus just blows it away. Just having these two 1:35 scale dinosaurs illustrate the variety in the Sauropod clade. What an amazing dream come true. Finally, let's compare with the other members of the big three, the Haolongood Apatosaurus, the Rebor Diplodocus, and of course, it seems a no-brainer that Haolongood will eventually complete the big three with its own Diplodocus. Now we have a look at the big three together, from antiquity to modernity, and just to add to the Morrison formation a bit, Here's the 𝗥𝗲𝗳𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 well throw in the Stegosaurus ungulatus. So that's it. When Haolongood gave us their 1-35 Apatosaurus, I prayed that if it did well, we'd get a 1-35 Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus as well. And here we see how far we've come. I really do believe that this is the best Brachiosaurus out of all the mass-produced models, and especially in 1-35. Now that we have this, I never thought I'd say this, but as much as I love macronarians, especially titanosaurs, with the Alamosaurus, the Argentinosaurus, and now Brachiosaurus, I'm ready for a temporary break from this mighty group, with perhaps Patagotitan or Dreadnoughtus down the road. It seems to me that the most wanted would be a Diplodocus, and in terms of supersizing, I'd love a Barosaurus. But other than that, maybe some small sauropods like 𝗥𝗲𝗳𝗲𝗀𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 And now we can finally complete this poster. 好龙谷 promised much, and it even over-delivered with a couple of surprises. I really respect people who do what they say they'll do, and as a sauropod lover who'd given up on anything like a 1:40 of scale sauropod collection, I'm really grateful to this amazing company. Anyway guys, it's Chinese New Year today, so let me wish you all a Happy New Year, and just to express my gratitude for your support, your comments, your insights, your knowledge, and your time. It's not a lot of adults who can understand this love for dinosaurs, and really beginning with the 1:35 of Apatosaurus, all the way to the 1:35 Argentinosaurus, and finally completing this poster with Brachiosaurus. It's really an adventure I've been privileged to have you guys share with me. Thank you once again, and have a great, healthy, happy year ahead. I'll see you in the next video.